I died betrayed. Reborn, I grab the CEO and call him my husband. But why does he agree? I was reborn and found my cousin plotting the same game. But I am calm because I already know every move as I can hear people's thoughts. I opened my eyes to find myself staring at the chandelier in the grand ballroom, the night of the engagement ceremony. My heart pounded as memories crashed over me. I had lived this night before. I had died because of this night. Across the room stood two men, Alexander Stone, the eldest heir of the Stone Empire, ruthless, brilliant, untouchable, and beside him, Marcus Stone, his half-brother, warm smile masking cold deceit. This time, I'll take the powerful one before she does. The voice wasn't mine. It came from inside Isabella's head. My cousin. I turned toward her. She stood right next to me, smiling sweetly, but her lips hadn't moved. My breath caught. I could hear her thoughts, and then it hit me. I had been given a second chance, and an impossible gift. Just wait, dear cousin. This time you'll suffer in my place. Isabella's voice whispered inside my mind again. She had been reborn too. In our past life, she had married Alexander for his wealth and status, but he had been cold and distant, and her greed had led to her ruin. I had married Marcus, the charming one, the kind one. Or so I'd believed. Behind the mask, Marcus had been a monster. He poisoned my body slowly, broke my spirit piece by piece, until death was my only escape. Isabella had watched it all, satisfied then. Jealous even in victory, she had orchestrated my accident. But this time, I would rewrite fate. When my uncle announced, Isabella will marry Marcus Stone, she glowed with triumph, clinging to Marcus's arm. Then he turned to me. And Vivian, you will marry Alexander Stone. I took a breath, lifted my chin, and smiled. I accept. Alexander's gray eyes locked on mine. Calm, unreadable, a storm contained behind ice. As I approached, I tried to listen for his thoughts. Nothing. Silence. It was as if his mind was a fortress. I extended my hand. I look forward to our partnership, Mr. Stone. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise. Interest. Then it was gone. The double wedding was set for a month later. Isabella filled the newspapers with her lavish plans. Designer gowns, grand venues, photographers trailing her every step let her have the noise. I would build something real. On the wedding day, Alexander stood tall in a black suit, reserved and poised. Marcus, meanwhile, played the perfect lover, whispering sweet words into Isabella's ear. She thinks she's clever, Marcus's inner voice sneered. But she'll break even faster than the last one. My stomach turned. So he hadn't changed either. That night, Alexander and I returned to his private residence, a glass-walled mansion overlooking the city lights. He gestured toward the staircase. The staff will show you to your room. Our room, I corrected gently. He paused. Our room? We're married now. People will notice if we live like strangers. His gaze softened, just a fraction. You're not what I expected, Vivian. What did you expect? Someone more impressed by money. I'm interested in respect, Alexander. And building something of my own, I don't need your fortune. He looked at me for a long moment before saying quietly, then perhaps we'll get along after all. That night, he worked in silence on his laptop while I studied reports from the Stone Empire's subsidiaries. I wasn't going to be a decorative wife this time. I would learn, observe, and grow. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, I began to understand Alexander. Beneath the frost was discipline, intelligence, and something else. Loneliness. One afternoon, Eleanor Stone, his mother, invited me to a charity garden event she hosted annually at their estate. The sprawling lawns were filled with guests, socialites, investors, politicians. Isabella arrived in a glittering gown, laughing too loudly, making sure everyone noticed her. Eleanor watched quietly, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Vivian, she said to me, help me organize the donations for the children's wing. I nodded and moved swiftly, coordinating volunteers, checking logistics, making sure every detail was perfect. I could feel Isabella's eyes on me the entire time. She's showing off again, Isabella's thoughts hissed. Mother Eleanor will always prefer her now. When the event ended, Eleanor turned to me. You handled that beautifully. Most women in your position would rather pose for the cameras. I've had enough of pretending, I said softly. Eleanor smiled faintly. Good. You have the steadiness this family needs. That night, Alexander found me reading in the study. Mother mentioned you impressed her. I didn't do it for her approval, I replied. I know, he said. That's why you got it. He poured himself a drink and leaned against the desk. I've been watching you, Vivian. You're sharper than most people I work with. I met his gaze steadily. Then let me work with you. He hesitated. The business world isn't gentle. Neither is survival, I said. From that night forward, Alexander began taking me along to meetings. He rarely showed emotion, but I learned to read the subtle shifts in his expression, the rhythm of his silence. And sometimes, just sometimes, I caught faint whispers of his thoughts. Fragments like smoke in the air. She's remarkable. Why do I look forward to her company? I never let on that I could hear them, but they filled me with a strange, quiet warmth. Meanwhile, Isabella's perfect world was beginning to crumble. I saw her at a family gala a few weeks later. Her smile stretched thin, her movements unsteady. She cornered me in the powder room. Enjoying the attention, cousin? She sneered. I met her gaze. You look tired, Isabella. Her hand trembled. You think you've won? You don't know Marcus like I do. He loves me. He wouldn't. Her thoughts broke off mid-sentence, replaced by a tremor of fear. Unless he's doing it again. She left abruptly. I wanted to follow, but something in her eyes told me she wasn't ready to be saved. Later that evening, Alexander approached me. You saw her? Yes. She's unraveling, he said quietly. Marcus hides it well, but I see the signs. Then we need to help her. He studied me, thoughtful. You care for someone who hated you. I care because I remember being her, I said, trapped and afraid. Alexander didn't respond, but when I turned, I saw something soften in his eyes. Admiration. Maybe even tenderness. Weeks later, it happened. The call came late at night. Eleanor's voice was shaking. Vivian, come to the hospital. It's Isabella. Marcus claims it was an overdose. We rushed there. Isabella lay pale and still, tubes snaking from her arms. Marcus sat at her bedside, weeping for the crowd, his face a mask of grief. But inside, his thoughts were venom, pathetic woman. If she dies, I'll play the grieving husband and inherit everything. Without hesitation, I slapped him. You did this. He grabbed my wrist. Careful, Vivian. Before I could reply, Alexander stepped forward, his voice like steel. Let go of her. Marcus froze. I know what you've been doing, Alexander said coldly. Security footage. Locked cabinets. You've been drugging her. Marcus's mask shattered. You can't prove. But he could. Within hours, Alexander presented the evidence to the police. Marcus tried to flee, but the law finally caught up to him. As they dragged him away, his mind screamed one last thought that only I could hear. I should have killed you again when I had the chance. And then, silence. When Isabella awoke days later, she asked to see me. Her voice was hoarse. Why did you save me? Because no one deserves what he did to us, I said softly. Her eyes filled with tears. I think I hurt you once. In another life. I don't remember everything, but I feel it. I'm sorry. I held her hand. Then use this life to make it right. She nodded. And for the first time, her smile was real. Months passed. Isabella began working for one of the Stone subsidiaries. Rebuilding her life, Marcus was sentenced to prison. One evening, Alexander asked me to meet him at the ballroom where it had all begun. The chandeliers shimmered just as they had that first night, but everything had changed. He stood waiting by the grand windows. Do you remember this place? I'll never forget it. That night, I saw a woman standing tall in a world that tried to break her, he said quietly. I thought I was marrying a stranger. Instead, I found my equal. My heart raced. Alexander? He stepped closer. There's something I need to say. I care for you, Vivian. More than I planned to. More than I should. I hesitated, then whispered, I can hear your thoughts. He blinked. What? I can hear people's minds. It's how I knew about Marcus, about the investors. It's why I've always known who to trust. He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Then hear this. And in that instant, I did. Please say you love me too. Tears filled my eyes. I do. He pulled me into his arms, his voice breaking for the first time. Then that's all I need to know. In the months that followed, Eleanor announced her retirement. Alexander became CEO. She placed a hand on my shoulder and said, Vivian, I want you to lead our Sustainable Innovations division. You've earned it. And so I built something of my own, a new branch of the empire dedicated to bettering lives. Isabella joined me, thriving for the first time in years. 5 years later, Alexander and I stood in that same ballroom again, now hosting a gala for the very foundation we'd built. As we danced beneath the chandelier, Isabella waved from across the room, her new fiancé at her side. She was free, whole, happy. Alexander squeezed my hand. What are you thinking? About how far we've come, I said, how we turned pain into purpose. He smiled. You didn't just change your fate, Vivian. You changed mine. I heard his thought clearly. You didn't find strength. You became it. I looked up, tears blurring the lights. I heard that. Good, he murmured, because I meant every word. The chandelier glittered above us, just as it had on the night everything began, only this time, I wasn't the frightened woman waiting to die. I was the woman who had chosen her destiny. Rebirth had given me a gift, the power to hear truth. But the real strength had always been my own. I had chosen partnership over fear, courage over despair, love over control, and for the first time, I was truly alive. Forever grateful, I thought. Forever together, Alexander's voice answered softly in my mind. And under the golden light of that chandelier, I finally believed in happy endings. Subscribe to Stories Manhwa and enjoy listening to different stories. If you like something, feel free to comment.